This audit is about how well the Nova Scotia government is promoting diversity and inclusion across its workforce of approximately 11,000 employees. We examined whether the government's diversity and inclusion strategy was implemented, how diversity and inclusion was promoted across the government and within selected departments, as well as compliance with government's own policies. This is not about us telling government what its strategy should be. This is about how well government is doing in implementing its own strategy and policies that it has put in place. The key parties involved in this are the Public Service Commission, as the central organization with the lead for creating human resource policies, and the departments who are responsible for supporting government's overall direction on diversity and inclusion. As a result, we selected 3 government departments, Agriculture, Community Services, and Justice, to see how they were fulfilling their role given that day-to-day leadership of employees happens at the departmental level. The main reason for auditing this is the Nova Scotia government has identified diversity and inclusion as a key area of importance. Specifically, the government has stated that it is committed to being a workforce that is free of discrimination and representative of the designated groups. The government has also a goal of achieving a workforce that is representative of the people of Nova Scotia. I want to share with you the key findings from this audit. While the Public Service Commission has completed work to promote diversity and inclusion, there is still work left to be done. What does that mean, still work left to be done? I would go back to the government's own strategy, which included a number of strategic actions that they wanted to achieve. We looked at 16 of these during the course of our audit and found that in fact 8 of these were not yet completed. We also found that there was no assessment of whether the overall goals of the diversity strategy were achieved. We noted that the Public Service Commission needs to improve its processes for identifying and collecting diversity and inclusion data to help assess if its actions are working and making a difference, including whether the diversity strategy is indeed achieving the objectives put in place. In relation to the Departments of Agriculture, Community Services, and Justice, we found that they are taking actions to promote diversity and inclusion, yet there are things they could do better. For example, tracking staff completion of mandatory diversity training, assessing whether diversity and inclusion goals are being achieved, and formalizing processes to regularly review human resource practices to identify and remove barriers for designated groups. All in all, what does this tell us? Well, it tells us that indeed work has been done to promote diversity and inclusion, but there's still important work left to be done for the government to implement its own priorities. As a result of our audit, we made 8 recommendations, all of which were accepted. I think these actions will help in implementing the government's objectives around diversity and inclusion. Let's keep in mind that the goal of the government is to have a public service that values diversity and reflects the Nova Scotians that it serves. Our 8 recommendations are really about a few key things. For the Public Service Commission, it involves putting a plan in place to achieve the strategy, making sure they're doing all the things they said they were going to do, and evaluating if that strategy is in fact working. Of course, this includes collecting the data necessary to assist them in doing that. At the departmental level, we noted that the Departments of Agriculture, Community Services, and Justice need to communicate with staff on things like mandatory training and tracking completion of that training. Also, the 3 departments need to formalize processes to regularly review human resource practices to identify and remove barriers to employment, retention, and advancement of members of designated groups, and ensure there are clear assessments of whether diversity and inclusion goals are in fact being met. In terms of what should happen now, I would like to see the Public Service Commission and the departments we audited work to implement the recommendations that we made to them and that they agreed to. I would also like to see the other provincial government departments that were not part of this audit look at the results of our work and find ways that they too can improve the promotion of diversity and inclusion in their own offices. I encourage the government to continue down the path that they are working on. The government has in fact done some good work on promoting diversity and inclusion. However, now it's time to build on the work already completed to further the promotion of diversity and inclusion.